Okay, so the recording has started. You can start anytime.
Okay. Good evening, all. Today's topic for the lecture is sewerage system design. So, starting with the topic, we'll go first with what is sewage. Sewage, or we call it as wastewater. So it is the used water or the liquid waste that is generated from the community from the various activities like cleaning, washing, bathing, as well as the water that come from the bathroom, as well as it includes the industrial wastewater. So the water or the liquid that is containing such impurities in such a concentration, so that can cause harmful effect to the environment. So we can call it as sewage or the wastewater. So the sewage is a combination of the solid and the liquids, in which 99.9% is liquid portion that is containing water, and the 0.1% it is solids. So we know that some amount of water the it is getting converted to sewage. The percentage is 70 to 80% of the water that is supplied to the community for the various purposes. So it gets converted to sewage from the various activities that is being done by the community. So before going into a detail, the sewage terms comes from the basic term that is a refuse. Refuse is nothing but it is the rejected or the wasted or the worthless material that is coming out from the various activities. So the refuse can be categorized into two types, that is dry refuse and the liquid refuse. So under the dry refuse, it is garbage and rubbish. Garbage are the dry refuse that are organic in nature, like vegetables, decayed fruits, etc. And rubbish are the dry refuse that are inorganic in nature, like paper, broken furniture, etc. And under liquid refuse, we are categorizing sewage and sewage. Sewage are the wastewater that is especially coming out from the bathrooms and the kitchen, and sewage contains sewage also, as well as the industrial wastewater also. So, starting with what are the types of sewage? Sewage is being categorized into stormwater and sanitary sewage. The stormwater is nothing but it is also called as the storm sewage. It is including the surface runoff that is developed after the rainfall over that concerned area. And sanitary sewage includes those liquid waste from the domestic waste and the industrial places. So this industrial waste are extremely foul in nature, and they are to be required to be disposed carefully, otherwise it can cause harmful effects to the water bodies or the land where it is being disposed. Sanitary sewage are classified into domestic wastewater and the industrial wastewater. So, domestic wastewater is that water that is coming out from the residential, commercial, and the institutional zones of a city. And the industrial wastewater comes from the different industries, and it is varying in quantity and quality also, because it contains large quantity of impurities in it. So from the different scale industries, it is having different strength of impurities. So different treatments are required before the industrial wastewater are being disposed of in the water bodies or in the land. Composition of sewage. So the composition of sewage or the wastewater varies widely. So here we can see some of the components that are being composed in the sewage, like water, which is near about 99%, 95 to 99%. That is often added during the flushing to carry out the wastewater. The pathogenic bacteria, viruses, parasitic worms, the non-pathogenic bacteria, the organic particles such as the hairs, paper fibers, plant materials, the also the soluble organic materials such as the soluble proteins, the pharmaceuticals, drugs, etc. The inorganic particles as well as the soluble inorganic materials, animals such as protozoa, insects, small fish, macrosolids such as the napkins, diapers, children toys, dead animals, plants, etc. And gases that are containing the foul smell like hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, methane, etc. Emulsions such as the paints, adhesive, hair colorants, emulsified oils, etc. Toxins such as pesticides, poisons, and herbicides. So we can see that these are all the impurities that are being contained in the sewage, which makes the sewage toxic for the environment. So before disposing this sewage into the water bodies or into the land, so it should be properly treated. So the treatment of the sewage from the point of collection till the point of its disposal, that is called as the sewerage system. So the term sewerage, it means the structures, the devices, the equipments or the appurtenances that are used for the collection, transportation and the pumping of the sewage or the liquid waste, but it excludes the treatment portion. So the entire technology or the science that is explaining the disposal of the sewage from the collection to the disposal point through the sewers is called as the sewerage system. Now, the pipelines through which the sewage or the wastewater is carried from the point of discharge to the disposal, it is called as sewer. Sewer are classified into categorized into three types: separate sewers, stormwater drains, and the combined sewers. Separate sewers are those which are carrying only the wastewater, that can be from the domestic wastewater or the industrial wastewater. And stormwater drains are meant for carrying the rainwater from the roofs and the street surfaces. Combined sewers are those they are carrying both the sewage and the stormwater. So next, types of sewerage system. So the sewerage system is categorized into three types: the separate sewerage system, combined sewage system, partially separate sewage system. In separate system, we are using two separate pipelines or two separate conduits for carrying the sewage. One of the pipeline will be carrying the sewage and the other pipeline will be carrying the storm water runoff. So the storm water is collected directly and it can be discharged into the water body as it is not fall in nature, as well as it does not contain so many impurities. So generally, without treatment, we can discharge it directly into the water body. Whereas the sewage that are collected from the city is treated adequately before they are discharged into the water body, or they can be used for other activities like irrigation. So it is required to be treated to meet the desired standards before disposing it. Separate system is advantageous and it is economical for the big towns. The advantages of separate system: as the sewage flows in the separate pipes, therefore the quantity that is to be treated in the sewage treatment plant is small. That results into the economy of the treatment, and the system is less costly as only the sanitary sewage is to be transported in the closed conduit and the stormwater is collected or conveyed through the open drains. When pumping is required during disposal, the system is economical due to less flow. Disadvantages are, as only the sewage is flowing through the sewers, the self-cleansing velocity may not be developed at certain locations. So therefore, extra flushing of sewers may be required. As the system requires two sets of pipes, so it may be difficult in the congested areas. And due to the two sets of pipelines, it requires maintenance, and the maintenance cost is more. It's a combined system. In the combined system, we are using one conduit through which both the domestic sewage as well as the runoff resulting from the storms is carried in combined. So in countries like India, where the rainfalls are very few, in the areas where rainfalls are very few, the system will face the problem of maintaining the self-cleansing velocity in the sewers, because in the dry season, the sewage discharge may be far lower, as it is been designed during the design portion, including the stormwater. The advantages of combined sewer are, in the area where rainfall is spread throughout the year, there will be no need of flushing of sewers, as the self cleansing velocity will be developed due to the more addition of the storm water. One set of pipe is required for the house plumbing, and in congested area, it is easy to lay only one pipe rather than the two pipes are required in other systems. Disadvantages are, it is not suitable for the area where rainfall is less, because the dry weather flow will be small, and due to which the self cleansing velocity will not be developed properly, that will result in the silting and incrustation in the pipes. Next, large flow is required to be treated in the sewage treatment plant, as both the water is carried, both the sewage is carried in the single pipeline, which will result in the higher capital and operating cost of the treatment plant. When pumping is required, the system is uneconomical. During rains, overflowing of sewer will spoil the public hygiene. Next is partially separate system. In this system, a part of the storm water that is collected from the roofs and the paved courtyards of the buildings is admitted in the same drain along with the sewages from the residences and the institutions. And the remaining storm water is carried through the open conduits, and it is being disposed. The advantages are, it is economical, and reasonable size sewers are required. Work of house plumbing is reduced, as rainwater from roofs, sillage from bath and kitchen, etc., are combined with the discharge from the water closets. The flushing of sewers may not be required, as some portion of the storm water is already allowed with the sanitary sewage. Disadvantages are, it increase the cost of pumping as compared to the separate system at the treatment plant, and intermediate pumping station will be required wherever. In dry weather, self cleansing velocity may not develop in the sewers. Next is quantity of domestic wastewater. Now, in order to design the sewer, that how much quantity of sewage it can carry at a time, so we need to find out the quantity of domestic wastewater, so that a suitable section of sewer can be designed. So for that, we find out the quantity of the domestic wastewater. So the sewage can be of two types, that is dry weather flow and the storm water flow. So we are calculating the quantity of the dry sewage and the storm water. So for calculating the dry weather flow, we consider the sanitary sewage that is flowing in the dry season. It is denoted by DWF. So the quantity of dry weather flow is determined by considering the following four factors, that is rate of water supply, the population, the nature of the area, and the infiltration. So as we have told that the quantity or the rate of water supply, mostly 75 to 80% of the water that is supplied to the community is converted to wastewater. So first we have to see how much rate of water supply is being getting converted to sewage. So it varies hourly, day to day, as well as from season to season. So the rate of water supply should be first verified, that how much quantity of sewage is being coming out from the water that is supplied to the community. Next is population. So the quantity of sewage depends on the population of the town or the city. With the increase of the population, the quantity of the water will also increase. So the population of the town, the city, after 2 or 3 decades should be ascertained by the suitable method of the population forecasting. Nature of the area, the quantity of the sewage also depends on the nature of the area, that is, the area is residential or commercial or industrial. In residential area, the quantity of sewage is taken equal to the quantity of water that is supplied to the consumers. In industrial area, the quantity varies with the type of industry, so the quantity should be determined by the actual survey of the industry. And the infiltration, it includes the subsoil water that percolates in the sewer through the defective joints or the cracks. The joints may be due to the poor materials or the inferior workmanship. Therefore, the cracks in the sewer may be formed due to the handling, careless handling during conveyances. So infiltration are those portion of water that is being percolating in the sewer through the defective joints or cracks, so that should also be considered. So the quantity of sewage, that is the dry weather flow, is determined by considering this following parameters. So the first parameter is the total quantity of a sewage that is taken equal to the quantity of water supply. The additional quantity of water that is considered as the infiltration, private water supply arrangement, commercial and the industrial water supply, and it is determined by the field inspection. And next, the subtraction is also made for the leakage in the pipelines and the water consumption in drinking, cooking, washing, etc. So the quantity of dry weather flow will be equals to total quantity of water supplied plus addition due to infiltration minus subtraction due to leakage and consumption. But from the various experiments and the or various study, it is found that the quantity of dry weather flow is equal to 70 to 80% of the total quantity of water that is supplied to the consumers. Next is quantity of storm water. So the storm water should be quantified before designing the sewer due to the different reasons, because dam conditions may be creating unhygienic conditions as they provide flourishing ground for the microorganisms. The existence of water pools, they are affecting the foundation of the structures. Initial washing of the streets by the storm water, they are containing the organic matter, and such water requires to be collected and they taken to the treatment plant. Low lying areas, they get flooded and transport system is paralyzed, so it leads to the loss of revenue. Stagnant water pools, they serve as the breeding places for the mosquitoes. Therefore, the quantity of storm water, which is also known as the wet weather flow, that will enter the sewer is to be carefully determined. So it involves the various factors such as the intensity of rainfall, characteristics of catchment area, duration of storm, etc. So we use two methods for quantifying the quantity of storm water for the purpose of designing the sewer. One is the rational method and second is the empirical method. So in rational method, we quantify the domestic stormwater quantity by using the following equation, that is Q equals to KIA upon 360, where Q equals to peak runoff, K is the impermeability factor, I is the intensity of rainfall, and A is area in hectares. Next is the empirical formulas. So we are using three formulas, that is English formula, Rabe's formula, and Dickens formula. So we can see that by using this three formula, we can calculate the quantity of storm water that will flow through the sewer. So after quantification, when we send that sewage for the treatment purpose, so before treating that water in the treatment plant, we first need to know the different characteristics of that sewage. So for that characterization of the sewage, we need to study the different characteristics of that sewage. So the characteristics of sewage is categorized into three factors, that is physical characteristics, chemical characteristics, and biological characteristics. The physical characteristics are categorized under color, odor, temperature, turbidity, and total solids. Chemical characteristics are classified as pH, nitrogen and phosphorus, chloride, oil, grease and fats, sulfates, DO, that is dissolved oxygen, COD, chemical oxygen demand, BOD, biological oxygen demand. And the biological characteristics are explained by the presence of bacteria, algae, fungi, and protozoa. So we'll see the characteristics. The color of the sewage. From the color of the sewage, we can indicate the freshness of sewage. The fresh sewage, it is grayish, brown, or yellowish in color. But with the passage of time, as the decomposition start or the putrefaction starts, the color changes. It begins to get black. So color of the stale and the septic sewage is black in color, which indicates that the oxygen that were present in the sewage is disappeared due to the decomposition process and it has become septic. Other colors may also be formed in the sewage. It is due to the presence of the some industrial wastewater. The color of the sewage can be normally detected by the naked eye. Next is odor. The fresh sewage is generally not so offensive because it starts getting offensive as the decomposition starts. So it becomes stale and it gives offensive odor. So within 3 to 4 hours, when the sewage is kept, all the oxygen that is present in the sewage they gets exhausted and it starts emitting offensive smell due to the presence or the formation of the different compounds like hydrogen sulfide, organic sulfide, amines, ammonia, and the diamines that are formed due to the anaerobic decomposition of the sewage. Next is temperature. Generally, the temperature of the sewage is higher than the water that is supplied to the community. It is due to the addition of the warm water from the various activities of the house and industries. And as the oxygen is less soluble in warm water, so the sewage becomes stale in nature. The optimum temperature for the bacteriological activities between 25 degrees Celsius to 35 degrees Celsius. The aerobic digestion stops when the temperature rises to 50 degrees Celsius. When the temperature drops to 15 degrees Celsius, the methane producing bacteria becomes inactive, and at 5 degree, the nitrifying bacteria stops working. Next physical characteristics is turbidity. It is the measure of the light transmitting property of water, which indicate the suspended and the colloidal matter. So the turbidity, it depends on the quantity of the solid that is present in the sewage in suspension. So the concentration of the sewage, if increases, then the turbidity also increases. In general, there is no specific relationship between the turbidity and the concentration of the total suspended solids in untreated wastewater. Turbidity is measured in the nephelometric turbidity unit. Next is total solids. As the wastewater contains 99% of water and only 0.1% of solids, so we should know that what type of solid is present in that sewage. So the total solid is defined as the residue that is left after evaporating the complete wastewater. So the classification of solid we can see here. The total solids is classified into total suspended solids and the total dissolved solids. The total suspended solid is again further classified into volatile suspended solid and fixed suspended solids, and the settleable and the non-settleable solids. And the total dissolved solids are classified into volatile dissolved solids and fixed dissolved solids. The total solids are also classified as the total volatile solids and the total fixed solids. So we see that which type of solid is when it is produced. The total suspended solid is that portion of total solids that is retained on the filter paper when it is taken out after being dried in the oven at 105 degrees Celsius. The solids that are left after evaporating the filtrate, it is the remaining filtrate, it is called as the total dissolved solids. The total volatile solids are those solids that can be volatilized and burned off when the total solids are ignited in the muffle furnace at a temperature of 500 plus 50 degrees Celsius. The portion of solid that is left over after the ignition, it is the total fixed solids. Volatile suspended solids are those solids that can be volatilized and burnt off when the Suspended solids are ignited in the muffle furnace at 500 plus 50 degrees Celsius. And the portion that is left after the suspended solids are ignited, it is fixed suspended solids. The volatile dissolved solids are those that can be volatilized and burnt off when the dissolved solids are ignited in the muffle furnace at 500 plus 50 degrees Celsius. And the portion that is left after the dissolved solids are ignited, it is fixed dissolved solids. Next, we'll go with the chemical characteristics of sewage. First, it is pH. So, it indicates the acidity or alkalinity of the sewage. So, if the pH value is less than 7, the sewage is acidic, and if the pH value is more than 7, it is alkaline. So, as we generally know that the fresh sewage is alkaline in nature, but with the passage of time, due to the production of the acid by the bacterial action, that is the anaerobic decomposition or the nitrification process, the pH tends to fall, and the pH of the sewage becomes acidic. But with the treatment of the sewage, again the pH tends to rise and it comes to normal position. So the pH can be determined using the pH meter, that is potentiometer. Next, nitrogen and phosphorus. So, the principal nitrogen compounds that are present in the domestic sewage are in the form of proteins, amines, amino acids, and urea. The ammonia nitrogen in sewage that are resulting from the bacterial decomposition of organic constituents. And the nitrogen being the essential component for the biological protoplasm, its concentration is important for the proper functioning of biological treatment system and for the disposal on the land. So therefore, nitrogen content in the untreated sewage may be present in the range of 20 to 50 mg per liter, that is measured as total Zaldite nitrogen, that is TKN. Phosphorus is contributing to the domestic sewage from the food residues containing phosphorus and their breakdown products. So it is the essential nutrient for the biological processes, and the concentration of the phosphorus in domestic sewage is generally adequate to support the aerobic biological wastewater treatment. The concentration of the phosphate in raw sewage is generally observed in the range of 5 to 10 mg per liter. Next, chloride. They are found in sewage that are derived from the kitchen waste, human feces, and urinary discharges. The normal chloride content in sewage is 120 mg per liter, whereas the permissible limit of chloride content in water is 250 mg per liter. But a large amount of chlorides may enter the wastewater, that is emitting from the industries like ice cream plants, meat salting, etc. When the chloride content of a given sewage is found to be high, it indicates that the wastewater is coming out from the industries or from the infiltration of seawater, which indicates high strength of sewage. It can also be determined by titrating the wastewater with standard silver nitrate solution using potassium chromate as the indicator. That next is fat, oils, and greases. So it is being coming in the sewage from the discharge of animals and vegetable matter, or from the waste that is coming out from the garages, kitchens of hotels and restaurants. So such oils, fats, and greases should be removed from the sewage, because it can form a scum on the top of the sedimentation tank during the treatment, and it can clog the voids of the filter media as well, which will affect the diffusion of the oxygen. Thus, they interfere with the normal treatment methods. Therefore, its detection and removal is very important. Oils and greases are soluble in ether, hence, for their determination, sample of sewage is soluble in ether, and then it is evaporated, leaving behind the oil and grease as the residue, and then it is weighed. Next is sulfides, sulfates, and hydrogen gas. Sulfides and the sulfates are formed due to the decomposition of the various sulfur containing substances in the sewage. This decomposition also leads to the evolution of the hydrogen sulfide gas, that is causing the bad odors, besides causing the corrosion of the concrete sewer pipelines. So during the aerobic digestion of the sewage, the aerobic and the facultative bacteria oxidizes the sulfur and its compounds that is present in the sewage to initially form sulfides, which ultimately break down to form the sulfates ions, which is the stable and the unobjectionable end product. And in anaerobic digestion of sewage, the aerobic and the facultative bacteria reduce the sulfur and its compounds into sulfides with the evolution of H2S gas along with methane and carbon dioxide, which causes obnoxious odors. Next is DO, that is dissolved oxygen. So it is an important parameter in wastewater because it is the amount of oxygen that should be present in the dissolved state in the wastewater, so that when it is being discharged into the water bodies, so the receiving water bodies should not get contaminated due to the discharge of the wastewater. So when the water is being discharged into the water bodies, the receiving water body should have at least 4 mg per liter of DO present in it, because if the DO is less than that, the aquatic animal like fish and all the water bodies are likely to be killed near the vicinity of the disposal. The presence of DO in wastewater is desirable because it prevents the formation of the obnoxious odor, and DO determination also helps to find the efficiency of the biological treatment. Next is BOD, that is biochemical oxygen demand. So it is the amount of oxygen that is required for the microorganisms to carry out the biochemical decomposition of the biodegradable organic matter under the aerobic condition at the specified temperature and duration. So we see that normally BOD at 5 days at 20 degrees centigrade, it nearly 68% of the total BOD is removed, and BOD at 5 days at 37 degrees Celsius, 70% of the total BOD is removed. So the consumed oxygen is related to the amount of decomposable organic matter. The aerobic decomposition of the organic matter is carried out in two stages, that is carbonaceous stage and the nitrogenous stage. The first stage BOD is about, in the first stage BOD, 90% of the total BOD can be removed. So we can see here in the first stage, the carbonaceous BOD is being removed. And in the second stage, it is the nitrogenous nitrification demand, which is also the nitrogenous oxygen demand. Next is the chemical oxygen demand, that is a COD. It is the means of measuring the amount of organic matter that is present in the waste. It is used to measure both the biodegradable and the non-biodegradable organic matter. The COD test takes only 3 to 5 hours in comparison to BOD test for 5 days. So COD test is generally done as compared to BOD because we get the results faster. COD is defined as the amount of oxygen that is required to chemically oxidize organic matter that used as a strong oxidizing agent like potassium dichromate under the acidic condition. The toxic metal cannot interfere with the COD test, which is taking interference in the BOD test, and it is also useful in determining the strength of industrial wastewater. COD are generally higher than the BOD values. The COD by BOD ratio of the typical sewage lies between 1.25 to 2.5, and the higher ratio indicate the sewage is difficult to biodegrade. Next, the biological characteristics of sewage. So the biological characteristics of sewage is determined by the presence of microorganisms in the sewage. So the presence of pathogens, it indicates the degree of pollution, that how much the sewage is polluted or what is the strength of the sewage. The presence of microorganisms also affect the self purification of the water. The bacteria that is present in the sewage, it converts the complex organic matter into the simpler form. Algae, it utilize the radiant energy and they absorb the carbon dioxide and release oxygen by photosynthesis. The fungi, it is fully dependent on the organic matter for obtaining their energy. And the protozoa bacteria eaters, they destroy the pathogens. So these were the characteristics. So by after studying these characteristics, when the wastewater is treated, so before the disposal, we are having some effluent standards so that the water body or the land does not get contaminated when that sewage is being disposed in that portion. So the first is CPCB, that is Central Pollution Control Board. Next is environmental pollution, and next is WHO. So the parameters that we are considering are COD, BOD, total solids, suspended solids, and pH. So as per CPCB, we can see that for disposing the sewage into the water body and land, the for water body, the standard is 30 mg per liter, and for disposing it on land, it is 100 mg per liter. As per EPA, it is 20 mg per liter, and on land, it is 100 mg per liter. As per that, we can see that in total solids, we can dispose on land up to 250 mg per liter, and in water body we can dispose as per EPA as 400 mg per liter, and in land up to 1000 mg per liter. For pH, we can see that for water body, generally the pH should be between 6 to 9, and for land also it is 6 to 9. As per WHO, it is 6.5 to 8. So this standards should be met before the sewage can be properly disposed in the water body and the land. So proper treatment should be given so that the amount of pollutants should be removed up to the prescribed level that is set by this government authorities, so that our environment can be safe. So next we'll see the treatment of wastewater. So the treatment of wastewater means the partial or the complete removal of the excessive impurities for the final disposal or the suitable reuse of the wastewater. So why we need to treat the water? Because if the quantity of the sewage is more than the receiving water body, then that will get polluted, or the land will be sewage sick because of the limited self purification capacity of the nature. And if the discharge of large volume high strength sewage is disposed, it will affect the environment adversely. Therefore, the sewage is needed to be treated before disposal. What are the objectives of treatment of wastewater? The main objectives are: it removes the nuisance causing excessive impurities, so that the sewage can be safely discharged or reused. It should not create unhealthy or unhygienic condition. It should not pollute the water body. It should be useful for the agricultural purpose without any adverse effect. All the pathogenic bacteria should be killed, and protection to the recreational use of water should be there. So these are the objectives of the treatment of wastewater. So next, here we can see the flow sheet of the typical conventional wastewater treatment plant, how the wastewater can be treated. So here we can see that the raw sewage enters into the screening chamber. From the screening chamber, the sewage is passed through the grid chamber, then to the primary settling tank, then to the aeration tank, then to the secondary settling tank, from where it is being transferred for the chlorine disinfection, and after that it can be disposed of safely. So from the secondary settling tank, some portion of the sludge, it is being transferred to the sludge thickener, and also from the PST, that is primary settling tank, some portion of sludge is transferred to the uh, ASD, that is anaerobic sludge digester. So from that, the sludge is transferred to the sludge drying bed, from where it is being transferred to dried sludge for the disposal purpose, or it is converted into manure, which we can use for the uh, um, which we can use for the fire purpose or the um, cultivation purpose. So this conventional treatment flow sheet is categorized into mainly two categorization. First is the primary treatment and the secondary treatment. So the primary treatment can also be uh, combined with the preliminary treatment. So under the preliminary section, we can see the screen chamber, the grid chamber, and in place of grid chamber, sometimes we are providing the skimming tank and the detritus tank. So, in the preliminary treatment, we are removing the floating matters, the large particles, and the heavy inorganic contents that are present in the wastewater so that they do not cause any operational problem in the primary and the secondary treatment. So, it is also known as the pre treatment in the conventional treatment system. So in the screen chamber, we are removing the large floating matters. In the grid chamber, we are removing the grit, silt, and the sand particles. And sometimes, if the wastewater is coming out from the industries or the restaurants, so we are providing skimming tank in combination with grid chamber to remove the oil and grease from the sewage. And detritus tank is provided to remove the heavy organic and inorganic matter. So we'll see the chambers. So the first is screen. So in screens, we are removing the large floating and the suspended solids from the wastewater. So it is referred as the physical unit operation. So the unit operations that are being carried in the screen are the removing of the rags, clothes, and the plastics. So all the large floating matters and the suspended solids, so that they do not create any blockage in the further treatment system. So it is the first unit operation in the wastewater treatment plant, and it is used to remove the large particles of floating and the suspended matter with the help of the coarse screen, medium screens, and the fine screens. So this is accomplished by a set of inclined parallel bars that are fixed at certain distance apart in a channel. The screen can be of circular or rectangular. The screen are composed of the parallel bars or rods, which is called as the rack. We can see here, these are the bars, which is provided in an inclined position. Here we can see the cross section of that. The screens are used to protect the pumps, valves, and the pipelines and other appurtenances from the damage or clogging by the rag pickers and large objects. So there are different requirements or specification for designing the screen. So we'll see one by one. The velocity that is required to be provided in the screen should be, the approach velocity should be kept as 0.375 meter per second below the self cleansing, and the suggested approach velocity is taken as 0.6 to 0.75 meter per second for the grit bearing wastewaters. The maximum velocity through the screen should be provided as 0.3 meter per second, and for mechanically cleaned bar, it should be provided as 0.75 meter per second. The normally through the screen opening for the peak flow, velocity of 0.6 to 1.2 meter per second gives a satisfactory result. So the head losses that is taking place in the screens are can be calculated so that the backwater that is coming out and used for cleaning of the sewer do not cause any problem. So it is calculated by using the following equation. First, we are using the equation H equals to beta W by B 4 by 3 HV sine theta, where beta is the bar shape factor, and which is different for the different shape of bars. W is the width of bar facing the flow. B is the clear spacing between the bars, and HV is the velocity head of flow approaching the bar. Next, head loss through the clean or partially clogged flat bar screen can be calculated using H equals to 0.0729 capital V square minus small v square. So capital V is the velocity through the screen, and small v is the velocity before the screen when the sewage is entering the screen. The slope of the hand clean screen should be between 30 to 60 degrees with the horizontal, and for the mechanically cleaned bar, it is 45 to 85 degrees. The submerged area of the surface of the screen, including the bars, and the opening should be about 200% of the cross sectional area of the incoming sewer for the separate system and 300% for the combined system. The clear spacing between the bars may be in the range of 15 mm to 75 mm in case of the mechanically cleaned bar screen. However, for the manually clean bar screen, the clear spacing used is in the range of 25 to 50 mm, and the bar screen with opening between 75 to 150 mm are used ahead of the raw sewage pumping. For industrial wastewater, the spacing should be between 6 mm to 20 mm. The width of the bar facing the flow may vary from 5 mm to 15 mm, with the depth 25 mm to 75 mm, and generally bars are used with a size less than 5 mm to 25 mm, so that the deformation can be avoided. Next is the grid chamber. It is the second unit that is used in the preliminary treatment units, uh, because it is used in primary treatment of wastewater, and it is intended to remove the suspended inorganic particles such as sandy and gritty matter from the wastewater. So the horizontal velocity in the flow through the grid chamber, that is VC, can be calculated using the following equation, that is VC equals to 8 beta by F G into S minus 1 into D. So the two velocity that is required for the design of grid chamber is critical velocity and the settling velocity. So the settling velocity can be calculated by using the following equation: 4 by 3 G by CD S minus 1 into D. Next is the primary settling tank that comes under the primary treatment of the wastewater. So primary treatment is done to remove the set level suspended solids. The preliminary treatment unit as well as the primary settling tank are included in the primary treatment system. So the primary settling tank is also known as the primary clarifier. The removal of the organic matter in the conventional treatment takes place in two steps. So the set level suspended organic matter is first removed in the primary settling tank, while the colloidal and the soluble organic fraction is removed in the secondary treatment system. So the prime in the primary sedimentation tank, after the grit removal in the grit chamber, the wastewater that is mainly containing the lightweight organic matter, it is settled in the PST, that is primary settling tank. The primary settling tank generally removes 30 to 40% of the total BOD and 50 to 70% of the suspended solids that are being contained in the raw sewage. So the flow through velocity of 1 centimeter per second at average flow is used for the design of the primary settling tank with a detention period in the range of 90 to 150 minutes at average flow rate. This horizontal velocity will be effective for the removal of organic suspended solids of size above 0.1 mm. So these were the primary treatment of the wastewater. Next, after the primary treatment, we go for the secondary treatment, because in the primary treatment only the lightweight organic matters were removed. The remaining soluble organic matter and the colloidal matter are removed in the secondary treatment of wastewater. So here, the biological processes are taking place that are used to remove the remaining contents. So the different treatment units that we are using in the secondary treatment of wastewater are ASP, that is activated sludge process, trickling filter, SST, that is a secondary settling tank, RBC, rotating biological contractor, oxidation pond or waste stabilization pond, oxidation lagoons or aerated lagoons, oxidation ditches. So here we will mainly deal with the activated sludge process, trickling filter, and secondary settling tank. The main objective of the biological treatment of wastewater is to remove the organic matter from the wastewater that is present in the soluble and the colloidal form, so that we can remove the nutrients such as the nitrogen and phosphorus from the wastewater. So the steps or the principles that we are following for the biological wastewater treatment are, under the proper environmental conditions, the soluble organic substances of the wastewater, they are completely destroyed by biological oxidation. Part of it is oxidized, while rest is converted into biological mass in the biological reactors. The end products of the metabolisms are either gas or liquid. Principally, it is carbon dioxide, ammonia, and water. On the other hand, the synthesized biological mass can flocculate easily and they are separated out in the clarifiers. Therefore, the biological system usually consists of a biological reactor, a sedimentation tank to remove the produced biomass called as the sludge. The growth of microorganisms and the rate at which the substrate will be utilized with respect to time will depend on the type of the reactor employed and the environmental conditions. First, we'll go with the activated sludge process chamber. So here we can see that the influent enters here into the aeration tank and then to the secondary settling tank. So it is the aerobic biological treatment system because whole process takes place in the presence of oxygen. Here the settled wastewater is aerated in the aeration tank for a period of few hours, and during the aeration process the microorganisms that are already present in the aeration tank, they stabilize the organic matter. So in this process, part of the organic matter, they are synthesized into new cells and part of it is oxidized to derive the energy. The synthetic reaction is followed by the subsequent separation of the resulting biological mass, and the oxidation reaction is the main mechanism for the BOD removal in the activated sludge process. The biomass that is generated in the aeration tank, it is generally flocculent and it is separated from the aerated wastewater in the secondary settling tank, and it is partially recycled to the aeration tank. The mixture of the recycled sludge and the wastewater that is produced in the aeration tank, it is termed as the mixed liquor. And the recycling of the sludge, it also helps in the initial build up of the high concentration of active microorganisms in the mixed liquor, which accelerates the BOD removal. Once the required concentration of microorganisms in the mixed liquor has reached, its further increase is prevented by the regulating quantity of the sludge recycled and wasting the excess sludge from the system. So aeration units are the main unit of the activated sludge process because the main aim here is to supply the oxygen to the wastewater to keep the reactor content aerobic and to mix up the return sludge wastewater thoroughly. So here the usual practice in the activated sludge process, for the usual practice, we keep the detention period between 4 to 8 hours for the design purpose. And volume of aeration tank is decided by considering the return sludge, which is about 25 to 50% of the wastewater volume. Normally, the liquid depth is provided between 3 to 4.5 meter. Freeboard is provided between 0.3 to 0.6 meter. The mode of air supply in the aeration tank can be either diffused air aeration or by supplementing compressed air from the tank bottom, or by mechanical aerators provided at surface, or by both diffused aeration and mechanical aerators. Depending on the flow regime, the activated sludge process can be classified as the conventional and completely mixed activated sludge process. The modification of the activated sludge process, such as extended aeration, is popularly used for the treatment of industrial wastewater. The extended aeration is designed for higher hydraulic retention time and low F by M ratio, that is food by microorganism ratio. So most of the questions in GATE are being asked from this portion. So for the design criteria, we use some terms and we'll see some questions also here. So the terms used for the design purpose are HRT, that is hydraulic retention time. So it can be calculated by the ratio of the volume of aeration basin to the flow rate, that is HRT equals to V upon Q into 24, that is in hours it is calculated. Food to microorganism ratio, food in the ratio is the BOD that is entering the process, and microorganisms are the activated sludge solids that in the aeration tank, which is measured as ppm or mg per liter of MLSS. So it is calculated by using the equation F by M equals to Q into BOD 5 days upon V into MLSS. So if the F by M ratio is less, then BOD removal will be more. Next is volumetric BOD loading. So it is the ratio of the BOD at 5 days applied per unit volume of aeration tank. Next is sludge age or sludge retention time, that is SRT. So it is denoted by theta C, which is also called as mean residential. So it is defined by the ratio of the total microbial mass in the reactor, that is the sludge that is formed in the reactor, to the total quantity of solids that is leaving the system per day. So the total microbial mass in the reactor can be calculated as V into MLSS, that is XT, and the total quantity of solid leaving the system per day can be calculated as the mass of the solids removed with the effluent plus mass of the solids that is removed with the wasted sludge. Here we can see some questions that has already been asked in gate question. So here we can see an activated system sludge that is operating at equilibrium with the wastewater data. We are having flow rate 500 meter cube per hour. Influent BOD is 150 mg per liter. Effluent BOD is 10 mg per liter. The aeration tank is having hydraulic retention time is 8 hours. Mean cell residence time, that is theta C, it is 240 hours, that is we can consider it 10 days. And next is the volume, it is 400 meter cube. Mixed liquor suspended solid, that is MLSS, 200 mg per liter. So the food to microorganism ratio for the aeration tank is needed to be find out, where the options are given. So the food to microorganism ratio can be calculated as mass of BOD applied per day by mass of biomass. So here we have used the equation as F by M equals to Q0 into S0 by Vx. So it is coming out to be 0.225 kg biomass per day. Next, we need to find out the mass of solid that is wasted from the system. So here we can use the equation of mean cell residence time, that is SRT. So it is delta C equals to mass of biomass by mass of biomass wasted per day. So here we have used the equation theta C equals to Vx by Qw into Xw. So we have to calculate Qw into Xw. Theta C is given. So the total mass that is wasted from the system, it is coming out to be 800 kg per day. Next, we can see here activated sludge process. The influent parameters are given here. Here as the Q is 15,000 meter cube per day. The influent, it is BOD is 100 mg per liter. The X0 is 0. Here the aeration tank details, the secondary tank details. So here the schematic flow diagram is showed of a completely mixed biological reactor with the provision of recycling of the solids, where the S is the readily biodegradable soluble BOD, which is in mg per liter. Q, QR and QW are the flow rates. X0, X Xe and Xu are the microorganisms concentrations, that is mixed liquor, volatile suspended solids, or MLVSs, that is also given in mg per liter. So the mean cell residence time we have to calculate. So mean cell residence time is equals to Vx by Q0 minus Qw Xe plus Qw into Xe. So here V is equals to Q0 into HRT into X. So we have put in the values and it is coming out to be 7.5 days. So next we'll move to the second unit of the biological treatment, that is a trickling filter. So trickling filter is used for the complete treatment of the domestic waste, and roughing filter is used for the strong industrial waste prior to the activated sludge units. The primary sedimentation tank is provided prior to the trickling filter so that the settleable solids in the sewage may not clog the filter. The trickling filter is followed by the secondary settling tank for removal of settleable biosolids produced in the filtration process. So a trickling filter or a biofilter consists of a basin or tower filled with the support media such as stones, plastic shapes, or wooden slats. The wastewater here is applied intermittently or sometimes continuously over the media. So here we can see this is the media. So wastewater is coming from here, and in the media it is getting combined, and here wastewater becomes the microorganisms that are present in the media. They combine with the wastewater and they form a biological layer or a fixed film. The organic matter in the wastewater, they get diffuses in this film where it get metabolized, and the oxygen is normally supplied to the film by the natural flow of air either up or down through the media, that is depending on the relative temperature of the wastewater and the ambient air. The thickness of the biofilm increases as new organisms grow. Periodically, the portion of the film slough of the media and the sloughed material is separated from the liquid in a secondary clarifier, and then it is discharged to the sludge processing. The clarified liquid from the secondary clarifier is the secondary effluent, and a portion is then recycled to the biofilter to improve the hydraulic retention of the wastewater over the filter. So here we can see the media where the slime layer is being produced. So here as the wastewater trickles to the filter media, so we can see the filter media is consisting of the raw 40 to 100 size or the plastic media. So the biological slime layer consisting of the aerobic bacteria and other biota builds up here around the media surface. The organic material in the sewage, it is absorbed on the biological slime layer where they are partly degraded by the biota, thus increasing the thickness of the slime. Eventually, there is the scoring of the slime and the fresh slime layer begins to grow on this media. This phenomenon of the scoring of the slime is called the sloughing of the filter. Next is the anaerobic digestion process. This was the aerobic digestion process in the trickling filter because it was in the presence of oxygen. In the anaerobic digestion process, we are dealing with the wastewater sludge that is containing the primary sludge. So here the primary sludge are the solids that settle out of the wastewater in the sedimentation tank just after the wastewater are passed through the grid chamber. So here the settled material represents 40 to 60% of the suspended solids that are existing in the wastewater, which represents 25 to 35% of the BOD in the wastewater. So in the anaerobic digestion process, we convert the sludge to the end products of the liquid and the gases while producing a little biomass as possible. So the process is much more economical than the aerobic digestion. It was originally thought that aerobic digestion was completed in 3 stages, but it is completed in 4 stages: hydrolysis, fermentation, acetogenesis, and methanogenesis. So in the hydrolysis process, the large polymers, they are broken down by the enzymes. In fermentation, the acetogenic fermentations are the most important because acetate is the main end product that is formed. The volatile fatty acids are produced along with carbon dioxide and hydrogen. In acetogenesis, the volatile acids are broken down to acetate and hydrogen, and in methanogenesis, the acetate, formaldehyde, hydrogen, and carbon dioxide are converted to methane and water. Next, the sludge drying beds. After some portion of the sludge are treated in the activated sludge digester, it is finally transferred into the sludge drying beds where it is converted into manure or dried sludge. So, in the sludge drying beds, the small the water that is the sludge that is remained, it is dewatered. It is dewatered so that it can be finally transferred to dried sludge. So the sludge drying beds are commonly used in the small wastewater treatment plant so that the sludge can be dewatered prior to the final disposal. Here, two mechanisms are involved. One is filtration of the water through the sand and the evaporation water from the sludge surface. So, here we use a typical sludge dyeing bed that is consisting of 15 to 30 centimeter of coarse sand layer that is underlaid by approximately 20 to 45 centimeter of grade gravel that is ranging from the size 0.6 to 4 centimeter. So, here we can see this is the gravel layer. So the open jointed tubes are provided here of 10 to 15 centimeter for to provide the proper drainage for the liquid passing through the bed. Then the sludge is applied to the drying bed in layers of 20 to 30 centimeter depending upon the local climatic condition, and the sludge is allowed to dry for 2 to 4 weeks. Enclosing drying beds with glass can improve the performance of the dewatering process, particularly in the cold and wet climates. In some cases, only 67% of the area is required for a bed for the enclosed condition. Now, after the treatment of the sewage, when the proper standards are being met, so it should be properly disposed. So, the disposal of the sewage on the land or the uh, in the water bodies, it is termed as the disposal of sewage effluents. So, it is much more important because the amount of treatment required to be given to the sewage depends upon the source where it is to be disposed. So the disposal of sewage is done in the two ways. First is dilution, that is disposal in water, and next is effluent irrigation or broad irrigation or sewage farming, that is disposal on land. This for the disposal of a sewage on land. So the process in which the wastewater is evenly distributed over the land surface or the ground surface, which acts as a low rate filter, it is called as the disposal of sewage on the land. Here the suspended particles are strained out, and the colloidals and the organic matters are absorbed by the soil particles. The nutrients are utilized by vegetation, and the more complex organic materials are decomposed to simpler inorganic compounds by the soil bacteria. So there are some quality standards for disposing the wastewater effluents on the land. So the standards are being set by the government of India, which is including the Bureau of Indian Standards. The code used is 33071965. So these standards are based upon the quality of irrigation water that is required by the crops, thus limiting the concentration of pollutants that are contained in the sewage. So here we can see the BIS quality standard that is required for the wastewater to be discharged on the land. So we can see color and order. We can remove as far as it is possible. BOD 100 mg per liter, suspended solid 200 mg per liter, pH value 5.5 to 9, oil and grease 10 mg per liter, arsenic 0.2 mg per liter, cyanide 0.2 mg per liter, and the radioactive materials, it should be removed up to 10 A to 10 μc per ml. Radioactive materials, especially the alpha emitters. So the method of disposal on land takes place under three categories, that is surface irrigation, subsurface irrigation, and spray irrigation. In surface irrigation, the sewage is applied on the surface of the land, and it is also called as broad irrigation. So this method is widely adopted in practice, and they are following in different modes of application. Like first is flooding mode. So in this method, the land portion is divided into rectangular plots, and the sewage is flooded over the whole plot at a depth of 30 to 60 centimeter. Here, the under drains are provided to remove the percolated effluent through the soil. Next, ridge and furrow method. So here, ridges and furrows are dug. Furrows are dug in the form of small ditches of depth 30 to 50 centimeter and a width of 120 to 150 centimeter. And the ridges have length 15 to 30 meter and width of 120 to 250 centimeter. The furrows are filled up to two-third depth, and on ridge, crops are grown. The subsoil drain pipes collect the percolated effluent and lead it to the nearby natural waters for the disposal. Next, the subsurface irrigation. Here, the sewage is applied directly to the root zone of the plants through the perforated pipe or the pipe with the open joints. Here, the pipe network is laid about 30 centimeter below the ground level. As the sewage flows through these pipes and percolate through the open joints, it is distributed in the surrounding area through the capillary action, and they are utilized by the plant. This method is useful for places where the rainfall is poor and the demand is high for the irrigation and the subsoil water level is low. Next is spray irrigation. So here the sewage is spread over the land through the nozzle which is fitted at the tips of the pipes. So sewage is sprinkled under pressure, and the process also can be used for watering gardens and the lawns. This method of sewage application is useful for the sandy soils, and they can also be used for hilly land having the steep slopes. So, if the proper disposal of sewage is not taking place and the standards are not met, then the land is degraded, which is called as the sewage sickness. So the phenomenon of inability to take any further load of sewage by the land, it is called as the sewage sickness. So due to sewage sickness, the pores of soils gets clogged, and it prevent the oxidation. So therefore, it causes obnoxious smells. So for the prevention of the sewage sickness, we can um, apply some methods, like we can pre-treat the sewage properly, we can provide an provision of extra land, under drainage of soil can be provided, proper choice of land can be provided, rotation of crops can be done, and shallow depth application can be done. Next, the disposal of sewage by dilution, that is the process of to dispose the treated sewage or the effluent from the sewage treatment plant to into the river stream. It is called as the disposal of sewage by dilution. Here, the discharged sewage in due course of time is purified by the self purification capacity of river, that is the natural water. So the conditions that is favoring the disposal of sewage are when the sewage is completely fresh, that is 4 to 5 years old, and they are free from the floating and settleable solids, they can be disposed of. When the diluting water, that is the source of disposal, has a high DO content, so that the aquatic life are not damaged. When the diluting waters are not used for the purpose of navigation on the downstream from the point of sewage disposal, when the outfall sewer of the city or the treatment plant is situated near some natural waters having large volumes, the currents of flow of diluting water should be favorable, which means that no nuisance should be caused when the sewage is discharged into the diluting waters. So before disposing, we need to see these conditions so that the water body does not get contaminated due to the disposal of the sewage. So the Bureau of Indian Standards has also given some guidelines for discharging the sewage in water like like land. The IS code followed is 47641973 for the industrial effluents, for the sewage effluents, and for industrial effluents it is IS 24901974. So it is based on the dilution factor. If the dilution factor of the sewage is above 500, so no treatment is required, and the raw sewage can be directly discharged into the volume of dilution water. Between 300 to 500, primary treatment is required, such as plain sedimentation, and the content of the suspended solid should not exceed 150 mm. Between 150 to 300, treatments such as sedimentation, screening, and essentially chemical precipitation are required, and the content of suspended solid should not exceed 60 ppm. And if the dilution factor is less than 150, then complete thorough treatment should be given to the sewage, and the content of suspended solid should not be more than 30 ppm, and the 5 days BOD also should not exceed 20 ppm. So these are the criteria for disposing the sewage on the land as well as in water. So proper treatment should be given so that the land or the water body should not get polluted due to the disposal of the sewage. So thank you. Our topic is over here.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay.